You get to our communities, you don't see government presence. No roads, schools are not there. Even the existing schools are dilapidated. Roofs are leaking. There are no furnitures for the students and people to sit. No dormitory facilities. And so then the people now say, but in our community we have oil with which the economy of Nigeria is being run. Why must we suffer?
Government in its part was not doing what it was supposed to do. That is, taking care of the welfare of the citizenry. Government was not doing it.
The first thing that the communities tell you is that the problem is as a result of government neglect. That this is why they are quarreling with the oil companies. So in their mindset, the oil companies become representatives of the government. They represent the only formal structure they can hold accountable for their plight.
If you are taking oil from our land, your flow station is here, there's no short of electricity for 1 second. Why can't you extend this electricity to our community? Why can't you extend this your water that you are drinking there to our community?
The invitation Chevron to give us road is telling governments to give us road because they are together.
Chevron government, they are the same people. Because this is Africa, this is Nigeria.
Chevron is government. The only government we see in our area is Chevron.
Well, about the middle of March of 2003, we had a resurgence of ethnic crisis in the Niger Delta area where Chevron had its operations in the creeks of the Niger Delta. And it turned very ugly. Many houses were burned, several people were killed.
A lot of people were killed, villages were at war with each other. It was really a situation in which we had war. That was really what it was.
So Chevron had to close some of its facilities in the Niger Delta.
The agitation itself was directly against government, but government seems to be far from the people. So, and government is represented near them by Chevron.
We hoped that the conflict would not last too long and that we'd be able to return to the Niger Delta as quickly as we had left. But this turned out not to be the case, and we were out for close to 18 months.
It's difficult to compute exactly how many people that were lost from our clan. But I know that my clan lost a good number of youths, and a good number of youths were killed. Chevron impact before the crisis is not really felt.
Before the crisis, the community, we're not seeing the presence of Chevron. We just only know that Chevron took oil from our land. That is the truth of the issue.
You know, the mindset was, you know, let's do something for them. We can sit around a conference table and we can figure out what we want to do for them, and then we go out and deliver these benefits, this largesse for the community.
These company executives will come to the communities. They will bring a pack of lunch and other things with small drinks. And they said they were coming for developmental projects. Or they said, okay, they will give you this.
Chevron operated like a cash handout system where the community leaders And the community leaders, to a large extent, were not doing anything with that. What they were doing were just appeasing the community leaders. That's what Chevron was doing. But they didn't listen until, I think, 2004. Between 2003 and 2004, they suffered major damage. And then when they came back for a re-entry plan, they saw the need to change the previous arrangement that they had. And that was how they came to come up with this new arrangement of the GMOU.
I think that the crisis of 2003 was really a game changer for everyone. We had never seen anything so violent. We could not imagine that they could go to that extent. And in the time that we left the creeks, many of our facilities were destroyed.
They got to a point where it became clear to them that they have to do things differently.
Well, there are lots of companies that are well-meaning, but don't understand the process of development. So they think, oh, they need schools, they need hospitals. We can do that. We can build them a school. We can build them a hospital. The unfortunate thing is that, number one, you cannot sit down and decide the needs and requirements of others for them. Number two, you cannot prioritize for them. Number three, even if you get it right, that is, you are able to identify what they need, it is extremely important that they own the process and they own the structures in place for their development.
If we're going to go back to the Niger Delta, which we hoped we would, we have to do things differently. We have to find a way to make for peace. We can't just ignore the environment in which we're operating, and at any rate, we lost a number of the things that we had provided for the communities. We had built a hospital twice, which was burnt down during this conflict. We had built many schools in the communities which were destroyed during the conflict. So what was the point to providing all these facilities if it would end up being destroyed? So we felt it was time to look at things in a more comprehensive and holistic manner.
It is heartbreaking when you spend a lot of resources trying to help, so to say, some group of people, and then when you have a little disagreement, you know, those things that were put in place for their benefit are destroyed by the same people who are supposed to benefit from it. But the fact of the matter is that those things were never thought of being owned by the community from day one. They always thought it was owned by the person that did it, in this particular case, Chevron. So it was a Chevron hospital, it was a Chevron school, it was a Chevron facility. But if they were part of the process and they were key in putting those things in place, it's never happened. They won't destroy their own, building that they put there.
Those principles are the ones that guided the formation of the GMOU. These principles were partnerships.
We simply said the game would change from a bilateral relationship to a multilateral relationship that recognizes the role of government, the role of the non-governmental organization, the civil society, and also that recognize the role that we as a company could play in terms of brokering peace and encouraging conflict resolution through peaceful means.
Then we also said we need to have transparency.
We thought, well, we had inadvertently created this impression that we are more than who we are. We are more than the company that we are, and that we could fix all of their problems. Well, we can't, so it's about time we came clean and said, listen, there are many other people who we can bring on board, and we can all see where we can contribute to this enterprise.
We need to have some sense of accountability as well.
There's been a tendency in the past, particularly when people look at charitable approaches to assisting communities, to measure just what you spend. Because it was becoming clear that it's not a matter of just spending more or doing more. It was more a matter of doing better.
We said another key element was ownership.
In 2004, Chevron now came up with a new thinking that, well, they have been spending so much on community development, but the development is not seen. So they now think that it is good to hand over the development of the community back to the communities to handle.
Something you must remember is when we talk about stakeholders, we also have to include other people within the Chevron organization who doubted this process. Are you sure we should be turning over these tons of funds to community people who had never handled this kind of responsibility? We are an oil company. We're used to taking charge of things and doing things that needs to be done. We are not used to turning responsibility over to other people.
The key element in all of this is a participatory approach.
So we say, okay, look, fine. Do we continue to go that route? Or do we find a way of expanding the table, of having other people participate? Or do we find a way of also having a participatory process where women have a way of putting their issues on the table, where the youths have a way of putting the issues on the table, where whatever comes out as the issue of the community actually represents majority of the community? And then what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? Because that seems like, this is the last chance. Okay, if it doesn't work, what are the consequences?
Chevron has no longer been trusted again because there was distrust, there was deceit. Deceit leads to distrust or mistrust, and we were not now believing them again.
Most of them felt that, Chevron has come again. That is, Chevron has come with another formula.
The opposition is because of the long-term suspicion we have with Chevron as a company. So when they came with this new phase or process, they said, they have come with another tricks again. So we're very, very suspicious, we're very skeptical.
Chevron wanted to introduce us to the community that, well, we want to facilitate a new relationship. And we want to negotiate a new memorandum of understanding. We need a third party, and we are suggesting this third party. And of course, the community said no.
We said, no, we're not listening to you here. He sent a representative the first time. We said, no, you come again. Chevron brought you here to come and intimidate us again. He said, no, get out.
We don't know this third party. How did you come about picking this third party? We don't want to have anything to do with this third party.
The team came, we were rough. Everybody was rough with the team. Said, look, we wanted to nominate our NGO that will come and moderate this meeting.
So they wouldn't let us make a presentation. They wouldn't let us say anything. So the meeting ended.
It changed when the next meeting was slated and Prof came himself. It changed. Prof came himself down to the meeting and made appeal to us that he was here to make things, he's not going to be partial, he's going to be impartial. So, but when Prof came, we found him to be a gentleman, a man of peace. He has a very peaceful disposition. And he was talking, into our spirits.
I remember a time I told the leadership of New Nigeria Foundation led by Professor Ajibola. There was a time I told him that I said, look, if this GMOU fail, I will hold you responsible. We don't trust these people. So the NGOs came as a bridge between the untrust and trust. After long persuasion, after long discussions, some of us, okay, let's give it a try.
We negotiated, we talked for 5 months. Really 5 solid months.
The first negotiation was very long.
I think what saved the process was because we had someone who was neutral, who stood in between the communities and Chevron and said, look, Chevron, no, you have to leave at that. Communities, no, let's tread the middle ground. And so we had someone that sort of played that role in the negotiation process, and that was Professor Ajibola. The chairman of New Nigeria Foundation. He came in at the nick of time and saved the process. But for him, I think the whole thing would have collapsed.
The content of the GMOU is simple. There will be a negotiation of how much Chevron will invest in the communities for the year. Once this is known, the projects to be done, the people to be hired to do the project will be determined by a set of committees that involved Chevron, the communities, NGOs, and other professionals, and the government. So it was not going to be a situation of Chevron determining that we are going to build a school in this community. It is not a case of Chevron determining that we are going to hire contractor A to build that school. It's not a question of Chevron determining that this is how much we are going to spend on the school. It's a question of Chevron saying, well, we have $1 million for this set of communities for this year. And that is negotiated and agreed to. Now, the use of $1 million will now be determined mostly by the community within a committee that also involves Chevron, the state government, the local government, and some development partners, the NGOs.
Now, the Global Memorandum of Understanding which Chevron entered into with the communities where it does business, having entered into that agreement, there was need to constitute a body of elected representatives from the communities. Now, this constituted body is what is called the Regional Development Council. So for the 8 regions where Chevron is working, you have about 8 regional development councils, representing each group of communities.
The projects that the GMOU, the council sets for itself to establish in the communities, we were able to do them with even smaller amount of money, much smaller than what Chevron claimed to have been spending, and we didn't see anything in the communities to show for it.
And the interesting thing is that the contractors for each project is going to be picked from the community. The winner of the bids will be introduced back to the community, who will eventually do the job. And so the beauty of it is that the contractor is from the community, is known by the community, he was recommended by the community, so a reputable person. He knows he has a knowledge of the environment, he has a knowledge of the community, so these help him to deliver on the job.
Everybody has his own obligation. Chevron has an obligation of funding it. We have an obligation of maintaining peace, creating awareness, and developing our people. They begin to educate us on how to negotiate to get what is rightly for us.
We needed to make sure that we renewed, if you like, the mandate of the agreement. And we also felt that it was an opportunity for all of us to get back together and see if the GMOU was working, if there were areas that needed to be improved upon, and if there were ways to sustain the project.
If we recognize that development activities generally have much more success when they have a lot broader and a lot broader stakeholder participation and stakeholder engagement in determining what those projects are going to be and how they're done. And those participatory approaches apply to anything involving that process, including the evaluation.
We say, why can't we do a participatory evaluation? Participatory in the sense that we talked of partnership in GMOU. So let's involve everybody that has participated in this GMOU to be part of the process of evaluating it.
Well, one of the things that we decided to do with the GMOU was to bring in third parties. We thought that if we were going to be transparent, if we were going to make this stand up to the bulletin board test, we needed other people to get involved and share their opinion with us without feeling obligated to tell us what we want to hear.
In Nigeria, maybe you may understand it better, is if you put men and women together and you want to hear from them, there is likelihood that the men may subdue the voice of the women, or the women may not even be able to talk. So we said, go and meet focus groups, youths separately, without their leaders, without the women. Go and meet the women separately. Go and meet the elders separately. And this brought out a lot of information beyond our expectations.
Getting guns pointed at is an experience I'm used to, but we did the evaluation at the height of militant activities in the Niger Delta. There were some communities you dare not enter. But I don't think it's something that makes any of us special. We are Nigerians, and knowing the work we're doing, it was important for their voices to also be heard in the process, since they're always looking for space to air their views on their situation. What we did was to tell them that there is a need for your voices to be heard, so that if your needs are addressed, you can drop this gun.
So what we found out was there was a growing consensus that this system was better than the previous system. The GMOU was better than any other system that was ever done. There was that consensus. But there was also some issues around men domination, where women don't have a voice. They don't say what they actually want, and their interests were not protected.
The women were not really brought in. There was no, all the members of the council are men, all the decision-taking people were men, and it was then noted that more have to be done in the area of carrying the women along.
Some of the surprises that I saw actually came from Chevron, because from internal to Chevron, there were people who felt that Chevron was not doing enough. And that was strange.
I think one of the things with the evaluation that's really kind of the telling sign is when you do that kind of evaluation and you have all of these stakeholder representatives that are jointly agreeing upon the outcome of the evaluation, what is it do we all agree came out of all of these interviews and these focus group discussions in terms of this is what's working, this is what's not working, this is what could be improved, then there's no one to kind of sell the outcome to. All the stakeholders have already kind of agreed to it, and you can immediately move on with those improvements, which is what we did. We took it right into the renegotiations and used the evaluation as the starting point for the negotiations of what could be improved.
After the evaluation, the GMOUs were due for renegotiation, and they were all renegotiated.
It's contrary to the business concept of negotiations, where you want to have an advantage over who you're negotiating with to get the best business deal. When in negotiations like this, You want everyone to be organized, but you want everyone to understand what they really want and an effective way to go about it.
They begin to educate us on how to negotiate to get what is rightly for us.
It's never going to work unless everyone wins.
I can tell you that the one that took us longest was 3 weeks. For my own, that was in the East, all the 5 RDCs, which means 5 GMOUs, were all renegotiated per week, each of them weekly. We were able to wrap it. We start on Monday, by Saturday we are through.
My advice is that from experience, I've got to realize that no one can develop you. You are the only one that can develop yourself. Whoever that wants to develop you will only create a platform for you to develop yourself. So my advice is that if you see a platform where you can develop yourself, grab it and develop yourself. We became more creative with the GMOU. If we had not given it a try, we wouldn't have got to where we are.
If for the past 40 years that Chevron as oil companies have been operating in our area, if we have set up a structure like this, today we wouldn't have been talking about underdevelopment. Today we would have gone far. Everybody would have been skilled in development of himself and his community.
So my advice to companies would be, look for a credible third party to assist you.
Oil companies should take us as part of the operations, the day-to-day running of the operations, so that we will own their facilities as our own.
What's been surprising is how well things have turned out. When we were doing the facilitation for renegotiating the GMOU after the first 3 years, we actually had for the first time groups sitting in the same room that had never spoken to each other for several months, even years. Groups that had been involved in destroying each other's homes, in burning down whole communities, were sitting at the table and talking about one subject. And that subject was something that we put on the table. It was the GMOU.
Again, development, it depends on how you define what development is. For local communities in Niger Delta, development is infrastructure. Schools, hospitals, town halls where they could have their meetings.
Development progress really is in the progress made by people. It is not in projects, really. It is the advancement of people from one level of development to the other.
Development is not a destination. It's a journey. It's a process. It's not one day it happens and that's it. It's a process. The human race has gone through development every year. It goes for centuries. We keep moving forward.
How do we measure real development? I know that the people I met in 2005 have been transformed in many, many ways. There were people, some of them were people who were just coming out of war. They were raw warriors. Today, these are fine gentlemen who can sit down and negotiate anything with anybody. These are people now who are saying it is possible for us to engage any group, any organization in a civilized manner. It does not have to be a violent thing. These are people who are now coming to understand what development is. They are thinking more about how do we really get to change the issues, the problems that we have in our community. Now, when there are issues, people are not talking about we are going to destroy this whole thing. They are talking about let us find a resolution. The language has changed.
The GMOU process has taught me that you need to relate with people. You need to talk to people for people to know your problems. It is only when people know your problem that they can solve them. It's not by saying no, cannot. So GMOU process provided a forum for people to sit down and discuss issues. And that is one of the most important things I find beneficial in the GMOU process, because it has also empowered me. It has also, I've benefited from the GMOU process because I can now sit with people and discuss issues. I don't discuss people, but I discuss issues. And I discuss issues to give and to take, and not to be rigid.
I think it's groundbreaking. I think the GMO is a groundbreaking.
I will roundly advise you that you do not say no to anything that is involved in negotiation. When we fight, after the fight, we still go to the negotiation table. You can't say no at all times. Go and hear what new thing that the other person has got.
It's right for the people. It's right for the reputation of the company. It's right to improve the business of the company. And it's just the right thing to do for the people in the areas where we operate.
For communities, my advice would be, what do you have to lose? While you're on earth, believe in God. If you die and you get to heaven, there's no God. You've not lost anything. If there is God, you go to paradise. So what do you lose? Nothing. There's no problem in talking. So give a chance, see what happens.
Even though Chevron stops their contributions, Chevron stops their donations, we won't allow this process to die. We will look for a way to get funding from external donors and make this process continue, because for now, this is just the light. Chevron did well by bringing us together to have that concept. And since we have had this concept, we now know that we can make life better for ourselves than it used to be.
And one must be a little humble in the sense that we work for big multinationals, and we're all well read. We all believe that we're intellectuals. We all believe that we know quite a great deal of things, and therefore we know what's right for everyone. But we don't, and we only find this out when we listen, when we talk to other people, when we get involved in the communities where we operate. And we are the better for it, because learning makes all of us better.
The lesson is listen to the people, hear what they have got to say.
And I think if corporate organizations listen more and are less arrogant, even when they have good intentions, they will achieve a lot more.
What you